Open Doors by K.G. Rote. Chapter 1. Reminiscing Fayn was not his real name. Though he did have one. He had chosen it himself when he was a boy. He wanted something that sounded close to his true name, but it had to be distinct enough to protect him from enemies. Dark magic gained much authority from having one's true name. A wizard must always think ahead, must always be careful. Fayn's eyes were tightly shut. He envisioned himself walking down the dark corridors of his internal records, a library he kept of all his memories and knowledge. Fittingly, it manifested as endless shelves containing vast quantities of large, dusty books. Rows and rows of ancient tomes stretched in every direction. The mind can only bear so much before things must be filed away. He was searching for a spell he once knew. He had not needed it often, and so, eventually, it got filed away here, with everything else. At least he thought he had filed it. Even that memory seemed to him to be vague and distant, as if that part of his life was nothing but a vanishing dream. He walked further into the darkening hall. Volumes began to look more and more distorted as he went. They looked partial, half-formed, with missing runes and distorted appearances. Fayn turned abruptly. He began intently scanning a familiar shelf. "I know it is here," he thought, his eyes reading the various rune-encrypted titles. He needed not only words, but the motions of the spell. Magic was art. The correct manipulation of the strands of law and chaos, which flowed throughout all the planes, while simultaneously focusing on and reciting the words needed to call them forth to the same end, was difficult and dangerous for the most skilled of casters. A small mistake could change or end a caster's life in an untimely or unpleasant manner. His eyes stopped at an unmarked familiar book. Something about it was familiar anyway. He did not know what. He didn't remember it at all. An unexplainable impression of its importance plagued him nonetheless. He reached out to pull the volume out and look, but as he touched it, it and the shelf that held it collapsed before him. It opened into a narrow hall. This hall was made of stacked books, but Fayn ignored them as he slowly stepped through into the passage. "Strange," he said aloud. "I don't remember putting you in here." The passage went only a short way, and then ended abruptly at a strange metal door. At its center was a strange and intricate lock. The cracks around it glowed with an unearthly hue. He stepped toward it, his heart pounding as he did. He felt cold as the iron from which the door was hewn. Or was it lead? He had a gnawing feeling he should know the answer. He stopped. A sigil, traced with light, formed upon the lock. Suddenly he realized there was never really a door there at all. He had been silly to think there had been one. He turned away from it and walked back down the path. The row of books returned to normal, replacing the passageway, as soon as Fayn stepped through it. "What was it again I was looking for?" Fayn asked himself. His mind felt clouded and strained. He said, looking about. "Oh, yes, the spell." He went back to work, examining each of the partially skewed volumes on the nearby shelf. "There!" he exclaimed, snatching it. The presence of lights, smells, and sounds overwhelmed his senses as he came back to the predicament at hand. He now knew the spell, but he felt as if there was still something he was forgetting. Something important. "Oh, well," he thought. "I am sure it will come back to me if it is really that important." The pressing problem had to be dealt with. He twisted at the air, pulling and pushing the invisible strands of law and chaos, like a musician playing their instrument. He recited every word with meticulous perfection. The earth around him seemed to tremble, and then the round metal object before him began to glow with a bright red heat. A strange smell filled the nostrils of the onlookers, an enticing aroma. Finally, he said to his unimpressed companions. "We may have hazel bean roast to start the—" What was that about? Fayn, a heavily armored man sitting fireside opposite of Fayn, asked. Fayn stopped mid-sentence, offended at the interruption. His companions stared at him incredulously, all of them except their newest member, who was still curled up in her bedsack, far away from everyone else. "What was what?" Fayn asked. That, Fayn, an oversized man with a trimmed red beard and bald head, said, motioning toward Fayn with his rusted warhammer, "You were shaking and screaming just before you came to, speaking some strange words." "They didn't sound like words fitting to be coming from the mouth of no man," said Brund, the brown-bearded dwarf who was now on his feet looking anxious.